So okay, about mid-March, I do this. I got people to sign this petition saying Israel's a racist endeavour, and since our last program, and I think,
How many? First of all, how many people signed this petition?
well, since when it was about 1,500 the last time we spoke, but thanks to your program, it's gone up to 2,200 because so many thousands of people watch your stuff that they've all found out about it, and the numbers have shot up, and it's great. I mean, at a certain point, these things take off, and I don't have to go around with flyers every week.
All right. Now I'm starting to understand why a few people on Twitter were saying that they're saying to Twitter, please, can you suspend Gordon Dimmack for being anti-Semite? Now I'm understanding why. Sorry, carry on.
Great recruiting tool. Anyway, so it's something like 2,200 now. And a few weeks ago, I sent out updates. So the big thing that was Land Day. Do you remember the Palestinians were all sort of the Nakba, the anniversary of the Nakba. Mm-hmm. This was them all going to say, right, we're going to be at the frontier of Gaza, and we're going to take our country back, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And people were expecting a massacre. Anyway, around then, I was involved in organising protests in Scotland, and so I was doing lots of updates. And one of the updates, I happened to mention an article by a guy called Ian Phantom. Ian Phantom runs a group called the Keep Talking Group, and the Keep Talking Group are, they're interested in conspiracies. So I suppose they started off as the 9/11 Keep Talking Group because they reckon the 9/11 thing. Well, it's true. I think the CIA knew about Osama bin Laden and knew that there was going to be an attempt, didn't do anything to stop it. I mean, it kind of suited them in a way to have Twin Towers blown up because it gives them an excuse to do all the invade Iraq and all the things they've done since then. So anyway, there's a lot of theories and there's a lot of conspiracies. This group are amazing because they do conspiracies. Like they had Jeremy Corbyn's brother in, Piers Corbyn, who's a climate change denier. I mean, they have all these people in.
Yeah, as many of my audience, by the way, remind me. They keep saying you've got to talk to Piers Corbyn, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'll try my best to get the brother of the Prime Minister on my show. I don't think it's going to happen somehow.
Well, I don't think, and Jeremy disowns him for his climate denying antics. But anyway, this group, I got filmed by this group because, of course, they were interested in me. What you're saying? Oh yeah, Labour's been ruled by Israel. They wanted. I went to talk. So the day after I'd been at my appeal hearing in London. I went to the talk in Kentish Town, and it was great. Did a 2-hour talk, and they filmed it and edited it, put it on YouTube, and they've been helpful. So when this guy, one of the organisers, wrote this article, I read it, and it was really interesting. It was about Herzl. Herzl's the father of Zionism.
Yeah, he was the British guy who sort of, he was the British guy, wasn't he, Herzl?
It was German. I think he's German. I'm not sure. I know he was the, if you go to Israel now, you'll find his name on all the streets.
Right, okay.
Herzl Street. And he was the one that said Jews need a country of their own. But he also said a lot of other things that were pretty anti-Semitic about Jews having all the money, and Jews are causing trouble for themselves by manipulating the money in the media. I mean, this was 150 years ago. He was quite a character. And so he's seen as the father of Zionism. But he was a bit of an anti-Semite. He wanted people to be kicked out of Europe because he wanted them to go to Palestine. There's a whole thing. He wanted there to be pogroms.
So how did you use that to piss somebody off?
Sorry. So this guy Ian Phantom writes a story, an article about Herzl. In the article, he mentions this guy at Colostrum, and I hardly even noticed it. Colostrum has done he mentions him because they do, conspiracies. And one of the conspiracy theories is, what was going on at Auschwitz, because there's an old story about, Zyklon B, which is hydrogen cyanide, doesn't show up on the walls of the gas chambers. It shows up in the fumigation rooms of the rooms they used, because it's hydrogen cyanide bonds with iron. I mean, I got a degree in biochemistry, so I know all this stuff anyway. And it makes it dark blue. So the rooms that are dark blue are the small rooms they use for fumigation.
So the person you referenced in his article somebody who had wrote about this. Is that correct?
And I wouldn't say that Colostrom's more of a Holocaust sceptic. He doesn't deny that.
And you weren't referencing him? You were referencing somebody else who wrote about him.
And I actually said that there was a reference in there that people would find pretty toxic. So I
Right.
kind of like warned people, but I thought there was a lot of really good stuff in there that was important to read. You know, I think people need to know about Herzl. Anyway, so this Tony, of all people, Tony Greenstein, actually reads something I've sent him. I was quite surprised at that for a start. But first thing I know of it is he sends me this email, and he copies in everybody because he does things that way. Copies in everybody you can think of at Labour Against the Witch Hunt, all the Hagians, saying you have published something which is promoting Holocaust denial. Take it down now, or else you'll be expelled from Labour Against the Witch Hunt. You know, it was a threat. And I was like, God, you know, and I didn't think the way that he'd made a good case for taking it down, and B, the manner in which he'd done it was pretty nasty, and C, copying in everybody in that manner was all pretty intimidatory. So I said, piss off, you know. Anyway, that's when he got really annoyed, because you can't ignore something that Tony says. He goes ballistic, and this kind of went backwards and forwards at tirade. And then a guy in Glasgow got involved, this guy John Proctor, and so this steaming cauldron of fury, which wasn't based on anything, because I think it's guilt by association. You know somebody who said something which is dodgy.
Yeah, you are referencing Herzl, and somebody had wrote about Herzl to make a point, and somebody else that he wrote about in that article, which you said is pretty toxic, then they're attributing that to you and saying, oh, well, they're obviously implying here, or trying to imply, that you approve of what that person said and you support it, and that's clearly not the case at all.
But this is the problem within the left, and it's certainly a problem around this whole sort of very politicised atmosphere around sort of anti-Semitism and things, because Labour Against the Witch Hunt and Jewish Voice for Labour, to some extent, say we have to be cleaner than clean. You know, any hint of anybody anywhere within 100 miles that said something slightly dodgy about gas chambers is trouble, and we want nothing to do with them. So they shun you and they shut you out. And I don't. I mean, I'm quite clear that the Auschwitz story doesn't work. I mean, you don't actually need much hydrogen cyanide to kill a human. You need a lot to kill insects, which is why the rooms for fumigating mattresses were so dark blue, because they need a ton to kill a few ants, but only need a tiny bit to kill a human. But anyway, so I actually have that all on my website. You know, I've justified. I took the whole conversation, because the trouble is, once you've got all these people involved, and I don't have access to most of the Google groups that Tony's sending stuff to, so I don't know who knows that he thinks I'm promoting Holocaust denial, and I think, fuck it. There's rumours, you know. Every time when this thing starts, I don't know who I mean, I don't know what you know. Maybe you've heard rumours that I'm bad. Suddenly, people don't reply to my emails anymore. Suddenly, I become persona non grata, and it's like, oh my God, you know, who knows what? And my approach to that, rather than being the victim of a whispering campaign, is to make everything public. So I take the whole lot and I put the whole lot on my website. If you go to my website, www.kidsnotsuits.com, you can see the whole thing. It's called the Tony Greenstein and John Proctor spat, and it's one of the posts. And if you scroll down to the front page, you'll get to the post. And it's got all the stuff that went on between us. Because I thought, well, get it out there, you know, get the stuff out there, and then there can't be a whispering campaign, because what you've written is there in black and white. And I was defending freedom of speech, I suppose. I was saying Colostrum has got a right to write stuff. And okay, it's our job perhaps to challenge it, and that's what the world's about. You know, people say things and you challenge them. There's a kind of zero tolerance approach that is actually kind of toxic.
Yeah, it's not just toxic, and I've talked about this on my channel, Pete. It's not just toxic, it's fucking dangerous is what it is, and here's why. Because in an era where there is so much misinformation out there at the moment, not just from, you know, people who are out there just trying to make a quick buck, but also from institutions like the BBC that are meant to be trustworthy, you know, stuff that's just factually untrue, and that's obviously, they're always going to push the pro-establishment narrative, and, you know, if in acts of war it's going to be absolute untruth that they publish. And then you've got the corporate media, which has been co-opted now. So, you know, 4 companies own 78% of everything that the public read. So we don't know what's true to start off with, you know. We need more speech now, not shutting people up. And this is something that the left do all the time. I caught there was a gentleman who is a prominent voice of this group in Labour called Momentum, which I'm really not sure about at all, because they seem to be more focused on shutting down debate, shutting it down and shutting down a voice rather than actually having more talking. For instance, this whole Tommy Robinson thing with him being he's standing for a member of the European Parliament, and I've seen members of Momentum, prominent members of Momentum, you know, journalists, some of them journalists, who were calling for Tommy Robinson to be banned from sitting as an MEP because he's a racist. It's like, no, listen, if he's got a racist rhetoric and anything that he's done in the past you hate, then stand against him. Have a better message than what he's providing. Because he's providing something that is obviously resonating with the nation at the moment, because the nation are fucking hurting. So they're turning to people for answers. And if they know that the corporate media is bullshit and they know that the BBC is bullshit, who are they going to turn to? Are they going to turn to the left, who are fighting with each other and shutting down speech and saying, no, well, you can't say this and you can't say that? Or are they going to turn to the right and people like Tommy Robinson, who has a racist rhetoric, let's face it, but at least he's calling out the bullshit media for what it is. You know, it's it can be very, especially for people who've maybe just woken up to the media, who are woken up to the bullshit from the media because it's becoming more and more apparent in the age of the internet, and they're getting more and more ridiculous trying to cover up their nonsense. But it's very alluring for people to come out to look at those two options and think, you know what, I'll go towards the right and the Tommy Robinsons of this world, because it just seems to me that the people over there on the left are just bickering and bitching and fighting with each other. Don't you feel that's the situation as well? That's certainly what I feel.
I think the interesting thing is kind of the story of Brexit in a nutshell as well, because people come out with assumptions and they don't maybe get challenged. So Boris Johnson, we're going to give all the money that we don't give to Europe to the NHS. You know, it's bollocks. And people maybe are beginning now through social media to engage in ways that they never did before. I mean, you know, what the BBC used to think it was isn't the case. You know, like your channel is a sort of amazing place because people will say things that would never get out on air. You know, no longer are the sort of accepted mouthpieces working, but that's why it's important to have, you know, it's about evolution of society. You know, if you look back at places like Nazi Germany or Russia, you know, freedom of speech was the first thing, the first casualty of a democratic society going wrong is freedom of speech. The point at which you shut things down is when you actually encourage kind of extremism, because people get angry, people build up resentments, and then bloody hell, maybe they get a handgun and go nuts because they think there's on some kind of vendetta or a vigilante. You've got to have freedom of speech, because it's only words that in the end are going to change minds. Bullets don't change minds, knives don't change minds, but words can change minds, and that's why the more words we have, the better.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's the thing. You know, they keep wanting to shut speech down, and I'm more and more I'm pushing to get back against it. You know, I respect people in America who say this, and Americans obviously have much more liberal free speech laws than we do over here in this country, as are archaic compared to theirs. But you know, the answer they say the answer to bad speech is not to try and shut it fucking down. The answer to bad speech is more speech, because, you know, bad speech doesn't get hold if people are actually aware of all the facts.
I mean, remember the McCarthyite witch hunts? I mean, that was amazing. You know, the whole idea of socialism or communism or any kind of shit was killed with the McCarthyite witch hunt. And it's only Bernie Sanders that's made it possible to say the word socialist again without being, you know, vilified. It takes a long time once you've shut down freedom of speech for words to creep back into the language that shouldn't have been taken out in the first place. But, this is why, I mean, that's why I'm surprised that Labour Against the Witch Hunt, who've got a banner that they put up saying defend freedom of speech. And here they are, they're expelling me because I've defended someone else's freedom of speech. So there's sort of hypocrisy, I mean, how can you do that? How can you claim to be, and all the sponsors, the patrons of Labour Against the Witch Hunt, I've written to them, Moshe Makover and Noam Chomsky, and recently Ken Livingstone, he's become the new patron, saying, do you know what's going on? You really think that Labour Against the Witch Hunt are standing for freedom of speech if they're expelling people every time they say something that Tony Greenstein doesn't agree with? Because this has become the Tony Greenstein / Jackie Walker promotion organisation. And that's what they do. They're only really interested in promoting their ideas, their agenda. It's a cosy London cabal, I'm just a bunch of armchair socialists from what I can tell. I mean, some of them are great. I mean, Stan Cable's a bloody hero, but, he sticks his neck out and he goes to things and he unrolls his banner and he turns up to every protest. Some of them are brilliant, but some of them just attack.
If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and click the bell below so you get a notification of when I drop further videos. If you click the links on the screen as well through to my website, you can find out ways to support me. I can't do this without your help, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks very much for all your support, and until next time, peace and take care.